School, everyone. I'd like to call this public session of Moncton City Council to order.
Your worship, all public meetings of Moncton City Council are simultaneously translated. Hearing devices are available. You have the right to address City Council in the official language of your choice. Meetings are also simulcast in both languages on the City of Moncton's YouTube channel and can be found on our website at moncton.ca. If you have registered with the City Clerk's office prior to the agenda deadline, 7 days prior to the meeting, you will be given 5 minutes for your presentation. Other presentations will be given 2 minutes. You will receive a reminder when 1 minute is remaining. Note, no presenter shall speak disrespectful of council, staff, or a member of the general public. The use of offensive or profane language will not be tolerated. Any breach of this guideline may result in the presenter being asked to leave the council lobby today at the discretion of the chair. All
public meetings of Moncton City Council are simultaneously interpreted, and you have the right to address council in the official language of your choice, and you have receivers at the entrance. Meetings are on both languages on YouTube as well as on our website at moncton.ca. If you've registered with the City Clerk's office prior to the agenda deadline 7 days before the meeting, you will be given 5 minutes for your presentation. Otherwise, you will have 2 minutes and you will receive a reminder when 1 minute is remaining. Please note that no presenter shall speak disrespectfully of council, staff, or a member of the general public. The use of offensive or profane language will not be tolerated. Any breach of this guideline will result in the presenter being asked to leave the chambers or the lobby today at the discretion of the chair. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we are removing 6.11, the 40th anniversary of the Papal site. We got word today that they weren't coming. And we have several 2-minute presentations, one by Kate Doyle, Megan Cross, Steph Patterson, Andrea LeBlanc, and Claire Kelly, and one from Lori Ibert. I'm not sure if Mr. Ibert has come to the council chambers yet.
Thank you. Could I get a motion to accept our agenda today? Thank you, Councillor Legier, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next is a declaration of conflict of interest, les déclarations des conflits d'intérêt.
Any conflicts of interest? I don't know that I could see also online, but I hope someone will reach out to me. So we're good. Thank you.
There are no minutes to be approved or consent agendas, and our public presentations. The first up this evening is Kate Doyle. Ms. Doyle, if you can make your way to the podium, that would be great.
This thing on? Can you hear me?
Yep.
You can? Great. Oh, okay. So council, I'm not sure if you can see, but there are a lot of people here. So I'm going to take my 2 minutes and I'm going to speak real fast because I have a lot to say. Mayor Arnold, members of council, on August 19th, Councillor Butler objected to the proposed appointments to the Municipal Plan Review Committee, citing concerns around qualifications and the city's own vetting process. He also asserted that he wanted to make sure that everyone was on the same wavelength. Councillors Crossman, Kingston, Bourgeois, Thériault, Richard, Steeves agreed with him. As one of the names of the people on that list, I was able to access emails sent between council members through a formal right to information request. There were no concerns about qualifications or process. There were, however, several emails about me. The only connection between statements that were made in public and those internal emails was the sentiment of only wanting voices who would be on the same wavelength. One of you objected to my appointment because I have been critical of council and councillors. Another opposed my appointment, stating if the public disagrees with you, then we should just use our democratic right to vote against any one of us at election time, as if the period in between elections exists in a vacuum. I was also repeatedly characterized as aggressive and disrespectful. I am not aggressive, I'm assertive. Despite one of you claiming that I don't have an understanding of how municipal governments work, I have read the current municipal plan cover to cover. The sentiment that I just don't understand or that I'm too aggressive are rooted in misogyny. Many women who have spoken loudly and publicly are discredited by being called hysterical or nasty or aggressive. On the topic of respect, that is earned. The disrespect in this situation is, to me, an engaged volunteer. Disrespect towards the city staff who spent their time and resources putting together a list that represents the criteria of the committee. Disrespect to the other potential volunteer appointees who also wondered if they were being talked about the same way I was. I offered each of you an opportunity to get to know me, to ask me questions, to clarify your understanding of my intent. Not one of you took me up on it. So here I am, in a nutshell. I have over 15 years working in nonprofit and social sectors right here in Moncton. I've raised thousands of dollars and an equal amount of in-kind contributions for local organizations. I've worked frontline with people experiencing homelessness and addictions, and I volunteered countless hours with different organizations across the city. My only bias in this process is ensuring that folks feel seen, heard, represented in the municipal plan. Thank you. If you have questions about me and my intent, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
The next presenter would be Megan Cross.
Thank you, Kate. And just to reiterate, there are 19 people here that you can't see on camera. Good afternoon, members of council. My name is Megan Cross. I'm a resident of Ward 4. I'm addressing you today in light of those recent revelations from Right to Information documents that revealed that some of you privately discussed excluding Kate Doyle from the Municipal Plan Review Committee, not due to her qualifications, but because you felt personally offended by her critiques of your decisions. And I am going to tell you what I have to say that is different, so please don't cut me off. One councillor even suggested that citizens who disagree should vote council members out in the next election, implying that the only acceptable response to dissent is to wait for a general election every 4 years. Such a stance is not only dismissive, but fundamentally contrary to democratic principles. It suggests that criticism should be stifled rather than addressed. I want to pivot now because I do have experience in municipal government. I recently walked away from an 11-year career in municipal government communications for a new role in mental health. And that's where I'm going to show you that I'm wearing 2 hats today. I want to pivot to why I urge you to reconsider this position. This council takes a lot of heat from the community for its action and perceived inaction on the local crisis affecting Moncton's most vulnerable citizens. Your messaging on the municipality's role hinges on the city's sincere collaboration with experts on the issues of substance use, service accessibility, and social determinants that improve outcomes for marginalized people. You can't say that you defer to these experts on subjects such as this and then refuse collaboration with those who are vocal about improvements the city can make. Based on how swiftly you moved to silence Kate Doyle, I am now concerned that your retaliation reflects a troubling pattern where criticism is not only unwelcome, but actively penalized. As elected officials, you are expected to engage with criticism constructively and make decisions based on merit and, most importantly, public benefit. Personal grievances should not dictate the appointments of qualified candidates or the involvement of engaged citizens. I urge you to reconsider your approach and commit to handling dissent with professionalism and respect. Our community deserves a council that values open dialogue and ensures that all voices are heard and respected, not one that punishes those who dare to speak out. Thank you for your attention to this crucial issue.
Thank you, Ms. Ross.
The next speaker would be Steph Patterson.
Good afternoon, Mayor Arnold and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Stephanie Patterson. I was born and raised in Moncton and continue to live, work, raise my family, and participate in the community. As someone who is deeply invested in the future of Moncton, I want to emphasize the importance of listening to engaged citizens, especially when their views may differ from your own. Democracy thrives on dialogue and the exchange of ideas, not on unanimous agreement. When citizens voice concerns or offer criticism, it is not an act of hostility. It is an essential part of a healthy democratic process. Labeling those who challenge decisions as aggressive is not only unfair, but also risks undermining the openness and transparency that our democracy depends on. We need to encourage, not discourage, public participation. I also want to acknowledge the effort and dedication that comes with serving on council. It's a demanding role, and I respect anyone willing to step up for their community. However, it's important to remember that while the compensation may not be substantial, this is not a volunteer position. With this role comes the responsibility to listen carefully, reflect thoughtfully, and act in the best interest of all citizens, not just those whose views align with your own. I encourage you to embrace the input of engaged citizens, even when it challenges your perspectives. This is how we build a stronger, more inclusive Moncton that truly represents all its residents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
La prochaine personne à présenter au conseil.
The next presenter today is André-Anne Leblanc.
Bonjour aux membres du conseil. Bonjour à la maire.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. My name is André-Anne Leblanc, and I'm the AD of the Regroupement Féministe of New Brunswick, a not-for-profit that defends equality between people. I'm going to read something that comes from my guide that's called Municipality, a guide that was developed with the municipalities in order to ensure equality between genders and to avoid discrimination, gender-based discrimination. Harassment has been mentioned as an obstacle by a number of women who want to participate in the political world. It can come from a colleague at work or an elected member, or this is a behavior that becomes normalized, and it's no longer recognized as even being harassment. But the social movements have highlighted these incidents and have allowed women to talk about it, and to give them a name, acts of violence, and to give this name make women uncomfortable sometimes and make them even more vulnerable to future violence. If there is no procedure to protect victims or the survivor, this is the reason why the number of cases are not reported. The Regroupement Féministe would like to talk about the concerns we have today of the definition of aggressive or assertive. Being assertive is having a judgment, an opinion to express, and it's not a question nor an exclamation nor an imperative. But quite often in the content of the emails that we saw that were asked by Kate Doyle, the difference between assertive and aggressive is just a question of gender. So we want to insist, our group, is that we're monitoring this, and we're very concerned about a process that does not seem to be democratic in the way they choose the members of the committee. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Is Claire Kelly.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Claire Kelly Orozco, and this is Miguel Kelly Orozco. And we are here because this matters. I am not going to be as eloquent as the past speakers because, wow, I was almost crying through all of those. They're well prepared. I just volunteered to sign up when I came in the door because, Kate, this does matter to democracy. And, you know, you'd think we wouldn't have to do this 100 years after getting the vote, but we are still here and pushing for democracy that includes women. And that's why we, and I look at Megan Cross and Carol Chan and others, that's why we started Democracy Now! A few years ago, we encouraged Women Plus to get involved on volunteer committees like this so that they could feel comfortable to step into running for an election. And so when we see volunteers being treated like this, how do we imagine that women are going to feel comfortable to step in to actually put their name on the ballot? I just want to give an endorsement to Kate. She is not just a pundit, if that is what bothers you. She is not aggressive. She is critical of city issues, which matters, and she is walking the talk. She actually cares. That's why she is stepping up for a volunteer committee. And she is willing to change her mind. I remember I saw a post that she didn't like the roundabouts in PEI. And, you know, people responded and, you know, gave their pitch about why roundabouts are good, and she changed her mind. And so I think she's an excellent person to have on your committee. We are all here because this is democracy in action. We are holding our democratically elected officials to account. Because this is democracy. The shirt I'm wearing that you can't see is that a woman's place is in the House of Commons, it is in the legislature, it is in the council chambers, and it is at the committee table. So I hope you do reconsider adding Kate to your committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
And our final presenter, I'm not sure if he is here, but Laurie Hébert. He had indicated that he wanted to speak this evening. I don't see.
Monsieur Hébert, êtes-vous là?
If I may, Madame la Maire.
That gave me the name.
Oh, okay. Do you, yes, for sure. Go ahead, Councillor Bourgeois.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur Hébert.
Thank you.
And he wanted to present a quick note to council, and if, with your permission, I will paraphrase his request. According to our earlier vote on, I might as well continue in French because it's something to do with the Acadian person called Beausoleil Broussard. Nous avons accepté comme conseil.
As a council, we agreed to place a plaque from Parks Canada if Parks Canada were to choose Moncton as the city to take this plaque in recognition of Beausoleil Broussard as a historic person in the Canadian history. The council's decision was that we would place this plaque in the tidal Boar Park. Mr. Hébert is asking council if we shouldn't reconsider the location for this plaque and rather place it in the Riverside Park, ideally behind the Press Club, because Beausoleil Broussard has connections with that location more so than with Boar Park. I'm just summarizing what his request was to council. Thank you.
Council mailboxes as well. So for more details, we'll be there. At this time, I would open the floor. Were there any questions to any of the speakers? I don't see any. Thank you, everyone who spoke tonight.
The next items are planning matters, a question d'urbanisme, and the first up today is a rezoning at 1113 Lefurgy, and I believe Mr. Budd is going to give that presentation.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Just one second. Just slide it back. Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you. Welcome, Josh.
Great. Thank you very much. So before us tonight is an introduction for a rezoning application being Z222.38. Next slide, please. The purpose of this amendment is an application that involves the rezoning of lands from R2, a 2-unit dwelling zone, to R3, the multiple unit dwelling zone, to accommodate a 9-unit apartment building. And the applicant is Youth Impact Jeunesse Incorporated. Next slide, please. So just to give some context within the city of where this proposal is taking place, it straddles the line between Ward 2 and Ward 4 and is located within Ward 4 along Mountain Road on Lefurgy Avenue, and the property in question is highlighted in red. Next slide, please. So just giving a local context today, this aerial was from 2022. That previous dwelling has previously been demolished. So the site is currently vacant. And if you look within the surrounding area, you'll see a mix of zoning consisting of suburban commercial, predominantly along the Mountain Road corridor, in addition to R3 and R2 development as you move further north along Lefurgy and the surrounding streets. Next slide, please. So the proposed development is a 2-story, 9-unit development with the average around 400 to 450 square feet of area per unit. It's a design that's similar to others that we've seen in the past few years, especially relating to nonprofit affordable housing. And you'll see on the site plan that 1 parking space is provided. As a nonprofit housing provider, Youth Impact is able to tap into the recently approved policy with the City of Moncton that will help, cash in lieu for off-street parking. So this property and this rezoning, if approved, would be eligible to tap into that policy where they would be able to provide cash in lieu for the parking spaces that are not able to be provided on site. And I would note as well that there is a very minor variance on the northern boundary of the property, which is in a slight intrusion into the landscape buffer of that near to that northern boundary. Next slide, please. So this provides a rendering of the proposed development, and the adjacent properties kind of provide a view of what is existing on those adjacent properties today. So if you look, you'll see a mix of landscaping, screening that will be provided along all common boundaries of the property to assist in reducing, I guess, that visual impact of the property to its adjacent properties. But in all shapes and forms, this is not a substantially large development. It is a development that, again, we've seen in similar other parts of the city that is, I guess, complementary to the neighborhood, and in a lot of ways is not all that visually different from properties in the surrounding environment. Next slide, please. Again, we're seeing different visuals from different perspectives. One area of note is that we do have on-street parking at all times, I believe on the opposite side of this property on Lefurgy Avenue. In addition, the property is well located as it relates to amenities. So it's within walking distance of schools, within walking distance of businesses, jobs, and equally importantly, along Mountain Road, a busy transit corridor where there is ample access to bus services to get you to and from all locations in the city. Next slide, please. So in terms of a recommendation, the administration recommends that Moncton City Council proceed with zoning bylaw amendment being Z 222.38, and number one, that council give first reading to the zoning bylaw amendment being Z 222.38, that a public hearing be set for October 7th, and that the bylaw amendment be referred to the Planning Advisory Committee for their written views. Next slide, please. And if this rezoning is to be approved, it should be subject to an amended resolution with conditions, including not limited to that a 2-meter opaque fence be made of wood, PVC, or similar quality material, but shall not include chain link fencing. The fence be installed as soon as possible, weather permitting, but no later than 6 months after the building has been constructed. That the landscaping be completed as per the site plan attached as Schedule B, no later than 1 year following the issuance of a development permit. The applicant shall provide unit numbers for the main building prior to the issuance of a development permit. Next slide, please. And that all uses of all land pursuant to this agreement shall conform with the provisions of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw as amended from time to time, except as otherwise provided herein. 5 or 6, that nothing contained herein shall prohibit in any way the developer's right to apply for a variance pursuant to the provisions of the Community Planning Act. And finally, that the development shall be carried out in substantial conformance with the plans and drawings submitted as Schedule B. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, this application would go through to written views to the Planning Advisory Committee on September 25th. And following that presentation, we will be looking at a public hearing for second and third readings on October 7th of this year. Next slide, please. So that would conclude my presentation, and I would be more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Josh. Councillor Richard, did you wish to move this recommendation?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Kingston. Councillor Richard, did you have any questions?
Not right away, no.
Okay. Any questions? I do not see any on the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, le prochain item, c'est l'introduction de demande.
And now we move on to a rezoning application at 61 Donald Avenue.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. We have a new zoning application. If we could go to the next slide. It's an application to amend permitted uses in the neighborhood convenience zone at 61 Donald Avenue to permit residential dwelling on the main floor. The applicant is Melissa Duthright on behalf of Cosman Financial Services. Next slide. The application is located in Ward 1 in the Sunnybray neighborhood plan area. We go to the next slide. You can see the site is located on Donald Avenue. The surrounding neighborhood has a mixture of residential zones, R2U urban dwelling zone, R22 unit dwelling zone, few properties zoned R3 multiple unit dwelling. The subject lot highlighted in red is zoned NC neighborhood convenience. And this particular zone specifically requires the main floor to be used for commercial purposes to serve the neighborhood. This helps meet the goal of a complete community where residents can access some of their basic needs within their neighborhood. This neighborhood convenience zone only permits residential uses as secondary use and only above the main floor. And this ensures the main floor is used for commercial purposes. However, in this application, in order to provide an accessible unit as per the building code, a residential unit must either be on the main floor or on one of the upper floors. And in the case of upper floors, it needs an elevator. And because this building is 3 stories with a limited number of units, that option's not really feasible. And so they're requesting permission to have residential on the main. And to give a little bit of context to this property, it's been vacant since 2010. Prior to that, there was a 3-story building with a convenience store on the main floor with residential units above. If we go to the next slide, this shows you the site plan. The applicant's proposing to build a 3-story building. 9 residential units will be occupied in this building. 1 3-bedroom unit on the main floor with a 4-bedroom unit and a laundromat and a bachelor suite. And then the 2nd and 3rd floors each will have 3 4-bedroom units. On this plan, the commercial laundromat proposed on the 1st floor, sort of highlighted in red, only represents about 16% of the main floor area, and it's proposed to be a laundromat with 7 laundry machines, and none of the units of the building, residential units, will have laundry facilities. We go to the next slide. These are elevations of the building. The siding will be fiber cement with accents in wood and stone. The building meets all the required design standards. If we go to the next slide, here's some 3-dimensional renderings of the building. And there's just really one outstanding issue with this application, and it's the size of the commercial unit. As noted, the neighborhood convenience zone is intended primarily to provide a commercial convenience to the surrounding neighborhood as one step towards a walkable, complete community. It's for this reason that residential units are only permitted as secondary uses to ensure that commercial use is prioritized. So while administration's very supportive of this application and it accommodates a barrier-free unit on the main level, there is a concern that only 16% of the main floor is used for commercial, and administration would be more supportive if they would increase that to 30% of the main floor. If we go to the next slide, so the recommendation is that Moncton City Council deny the zoning bylaw amendment being proposed. If we go to the next slide, as alternative, the first alternative would be for council to postpone this application for additional information, or alternatively, a second alternative would be, if we go to the next slide, to proceed with this amendment, give first reading to the bylaw, refer the bylaw to the Planning Advisory Committee, and set a public hearing for October 21st. We go to the next slide, and if this rezoning is approved, it should be subject to a resolution with conditions, including but not limited to that the proposed commercial unit be increased to at least 30% of the total ground floor area. And then there's a number of additional conditions that are built into very parking requirements. And if we go to the next slide, some other standards that were outlined in the report that deal with setbacks and garbage storage area. And if we go to the next slide, some other variances built in that deal with height. And then condition 7, landscaping be completed as per site plan, attached as Schedule B, no later than 1 year following the issuance of a permit. And condition 8, that all uses pursuant to this agreement shall conform to the provisions of the zoning bylaw as amended from time to time. If we go to the next slide, the standard clauses that you see in every rezoning, that essentially the development is carried out in general conformance with the plans and drawings. So with that, I would turn it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Bill. Councillor Bourgeois, you're up first. Did you wish to move the recommendation?
Merci, Madame la Maire. No.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Alternative number 2, but I do have a question.
Okay, I have Councillor Terrio up next. Were you also thinking alternative number 2?
I'm not sure which alternative.
Okay.
I just want to say that I agree with Mr. Budd that it needs to be increased to 30%.
Okay.
Which is what option 2 says.
Yeah,
c'est bon. Donc c'est ça.
So you would like to second it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the option 2 has been seconded. The floor is yours, Councillor Bourgeois. Go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Maire. Bill.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Fantastic council report form, very detailed. However, with all of those details, I think you pointed it out, it's this one issue, and it's the issue of increasing from 16% to 30% the commercial space. I am assuming, but correct me if I'm wrong, that you have discussed this with the developer, and is the developer not willing to come to 30%, or what exactly have you discussed with the developer to try to fit the project within the existing zoning regulations and conditions?
Yeah, no, staff did try to negotiate, and if you recall the site plan, I think next to the laundromat, there was a bachelor apartment, and I believe we were saying just eliminate that, expand the commercial, and then it would be more reasonable. But the developer was not interested, or the applicant did not want to go along with that.
Okay, thank you for your effort. I think we do need to respect the developer, but we also need to respect the community. I'll let Councillor Tilio and Crossman go more into detail on that, but we do have a bylaw, and I don't think this is the right project given the circumstances. So that's why I made the motion that agrees with staff, and maybe this will give you a little bit of better leverage to say to the developer, listen, we agree with your intentions, but some of the details we can't agree to. Thank you very much. Merci, Madame la Maire.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Terrio, did you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any other questions?
I might.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Councillor Leblanc.
Yeah, I find it interesting because there is it's probably for the students at the university and they could walk, so I'm kind of thinking, well, that's a good thing, because you don't see three chambres à coucher, in a lot of buildings. So I was kind of hoping that, as we're saying, that they can do but probably because of the rentals, they're there's how many beds? There's
9, I believe. There are 9 units.
Yeah, so in the 9 units, they have they're going to get rent, and it was probably going to bring more money than what he can do in the space that 30%.
Bill, do you have any rebuttal to that, or?
No, I mean, this, if we were to go into the Sunny Brae neighborhood plan, this was a very important, the city council of the day did not want to see the neighborhood commercial aspect of this property eliminated. And there are a lot of students in the neighborhood that will potentially use this commercial space, and besides the tenants in the building. And if for ever the laundromat ceases, it would just repurpose to another kind of commercial use in this building, which was a very popular location when the former building existed. So.
Thank you. Councillor Theriault.
Yes, I just want to thank Bill for those words, because the citizens wanted to maintain a commercial area and it is a university neighborhood, and I think that, you know, we could be creative and have some sort of a commercial space that would really be beneficial for the students and for the citizens as well. So I think it's just a matter of being creative. We could even have a bookstore in this area. I don't know, but yeah. It was a very, very popular place before it burned. And I think that from what I heard, the citizens really wanted to keep the store, that there was a store there, and yeah, people in the neighborhood did their shopping there.
So by moving alternative 2, could you just give us a Coles notes of what that means, Bill?
So if council, that's basically your approval, and then following tonight, we will meet with the applicant to go over council's approval, and if the applicant still wishes to proceed with that approval, if he doesn't or she, we'll ask them to submit a withdrawal, and the application will be withdrawn. They either proceed with it as council approves, or they can request to withdraw the application.
Great. And just for total clarity, that is if they could proceed with 30% commercial.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
The next item is public presentation, municipal plan and secondary municipal plan amendments for Gateway Towers. Mr. Budd is here to give that presentation.
Okay, if we go to the next slide, this is an application proposed to amend a number of our planning bylaws, the municipal plan, the downtown core community improvement plan, and zoning bylaw. So I will go through the various amendments through this presentation. If we go to the next slide, the proposed amendments are going to help accommodate a mixed-use development with approximately 380 residential units. The development includes a 2-story podium with commercial uses and residential townhouses on the main floor and second floor, and 2 17-story residential towers with underground parking and parking on the first and second levels at 1 Foundry Street, and a portion of a number of other pits, which I will detail. And the applicant is J.N. Laffert Realty, Inc. And if we go to the next slide, this application is located in parts of Ward 1 and 2 in the downtown. And if we go to the next slide, this developer, this application relates to a City of Moncton land disposition, a matter that council made a decision on of disposing of certain PIDs that are sort of highlighted in the etched red area, which will be added to form a development site for the development. And the developer owns the pink area and is again assembling part of Foundry Street and part of a couple of PIDs that are part of the Riverfront Park area as shown on this map. And if we go to the next slide, this is a view of the development site. It shows the former Northumberland Dairy Building, and that site is owned by the developer. It also shows you the Foundry Street right-of-way, which is on the south side of Assumption. That will be assembled to the development site, along with part of that, what we call a ditch area that borders the ball field area and the Riverfront Park trail system. If we go to the next slide, this just gives you an overall picture of the Riverfront Park and this part of downtown. And the yellow highlighted area just shows you exactly where this proposed development is located in the context of the overall park system. And if we go to the next slide, this shows you the site plan. There's a podium and two 17-story towers with a publicly accessible corridor through the site from Assumption to Riverfront Park. The two towers are connected by a pedway at the third tower, 2 stories of townhouses on the western tower with commercial along the first floor of both towers facing the Riverfront Park. If you go to the next slide, there's been some inquiry since this was introduced in terms of the proximity, how close is the property boundary and the building to the Riverfront Trail and even the ball field. So this gives some of the dimensions of how far, like if we look at the south side of the building, it's on one side approximately 13.3 meters or 43.6 feet from the Riverfront Trail. And then on the other side, it's 14 meters and 14.6 meters. And then on the west side, you can see the various dimensions. But it's designed not to interfere with the trail system. And there will be some buffering on the west side. And also to enhance the Riverfront Park area, there will be some outdoor patio spaces potentially created between the building and the trail that will benefit the trail users and all citizens that wish to come to this area. If we go to the next slide, this gives you a building rendering of the proposed development, and it really shows you, if you can see Foundry Street and Assumption, it creates a gateway entrance right through to the riverfront. It goes underneath that third-story headway area. And again, the western side of the building's intended to be well landscaped with some tree buffering and the trail system enhanced with connections to Assumption. And then along the south side of the building, a very pedestrian-friendly kind of space with cafes and amenity spaces for people that wish to, go to the retail outlets, restaurants, cafes, whatever locates in that commercial frontage. We go to the next slide. This is a closer view of that space, and you can see how pedestrians will be able to interact with this space. Go to the next slide. This just is a view of 2-story townhouses at the perimeter of the building podium facing the Help Bet Sports Field. And the next slide, I might just go over this slide quickly. This was an early concept. It didn't meet some of the design standards, and it was updated, and I'll show you that later. If we go, here is the overall development concept from the Downtown Core Community Improvement Plan, Master Plan for Downtown Revitalization. And what's important here is that the area that's circled in red represents part of the Lappert property on the right side of Foundry, and then on the other side of that is, I believe, MB Power property, but it's privately held land that's zoned Central Business District, and it's always been contemplated for development. And what's happening is this area is being amended to sort of include Foundry Street and a little bit of the land west of that to form the Gateway Towers development. And this just shows you other maps and schedules from the Downtown Core Community Improvement Plan. And this is a neighborhood districts model. So the whole downtown core is made up into a number of districts. The Gateway Towers is part of the Riverfront District. And again, the point we're just trying to illustrate is that there was mixed use development always contemplated at that general location. And part of the amendments will be to update these schedules in the downtown core to include sort of the Gateway Towers, and also to update it with the latest, the Three Sisters development taking place. And if we go to the next slide, this recognizes sort of that part of the downtown for community improvement area is in a floodplain, and there's various climate change adaptation mitigation measures and strategies to deal with this, such as in the zoning bylaw requiring buildings to be built at 10.5, the habitable space, which is above the flood level, and other adaptation measures to mitigating flood risks, such as mitigative measures in flood-proofing underground parking, and then adapting infrastructure. A lot of the downtown infrastructure is being renewed right now, and this various streets are being raised, like West Merlin, Assumption, Lutz, and Robinson, to account for some of the policy directives that address this area. We go to the next slide. This is a slide that I said didn't meet, the original design didn't meet the design standards. And what I mean by that, one of the big ones is street wall requirements. All buildings in this downtown core community improvement plan have to front the streets. Parking isn't really permitted in the fronts of buildings. So to mitigate that, we're building a variant sort of into the design requirements, but we were requiring a pedestrian-friendly gateway design and that dedicated public right-of-way that will allow residents to, any time of the year to walk through to the riverfront. So that's built into this design, and there's a very detailed landscape plan with improvements for the overall site, and there were the building facades were improved. So that's sort of what it will look like from the Foundry Assumption intersection. If we go to the next slide, this is a closer view of that. And if we go to the next slide, these are some of the amendments that have to be made to accommodate this development. So the first one, you see Schedule 1.7, that's the generalized future land use map. So the area that the developer is acquiring from the city to accommodate the Gateway Towers, we're enlarging this area. It's called a special planning area. And the second schedule, Schedule 4.1, we're expanding that area to include the land that's being acquired. And we're expanding the secondary municipal planning area, which is the downtown core community improvement plan for this area. And then the third Schedule A-37, we're amending the zoning here. We're changing the zoning from Riverfront Park to Central Business District so that this development can meet the zoning bylaw requirements. And then there are a number of, as I mentioned earlier, the Downtown Core Community Improvement Plan has a number of figures that we're updating, and I'll just go through. So this is providing some context for this to sort of show the boundaries of the downtown core are a little bit west of the old Foundry Street. And if we go to the next slide, you can see on the bottom slides, for example, that the Gateway Towers is now incorporated into the concept, and as well as the Lafert or the Three Sisters development, because it's significantly on its way to completion. So we wanted to reflect that here as well. And if we go to the next slide, the various, the overall development concept on the top slides is updated. And then the various neighborhood district maps on the bottom are showing this development now. And this would happen if council approves this at the public hearing. These bylaws will be updated with these changes. If we go to the next slide, just a number of the other the other neighborhood districts are being updated. And if we go to the next slide, some of the built form standards are being updated. We go to the next slide. Some of the circulation maps and destination maps are being updated with this. Go to the next slide. The bottom one is sort of, the bottom slides are or both these slides are, the top image shows important circulation, pedestrian circulation movement. And you can see that the Gateway Towers is with the Gateway pedestrian dedicated right-of-way. It has that built-in access. And the bottom slide shows important gateways and view planes into the downtown. And this development by its design respects this and is actually really creating a new improved gateway area to the riverfront. We go to the next slide. The resilient parking maps are being updated with the development concepts. And go to the next slide. And again, just more updates to the various figures in the plan. And if we go to the next slide, this is the final implementation section of the Downtown Core Community Improvement Plan. And it's showing this here. So if we go to the next slide, what we're asking council to do is to confirm the public hearing for October 7th tonight, and then just general information on what was introduced. If we go to the next slide, the next few slides are related to the conditions that council approved if this development goes forward. So the first condition relates to stopping up and closing a portion of the Foundry Street. The second condition involves consolidating the various PIDs that are being acquired from the city with the developer's PID to create a building lot. The condition 3 and 4, if you go to the next slide, relate to the developer being required to employ additional flood mitigation measures to reduce the risk and impact of flooding in the lower level of the parking structure. And condition 4 is he enters into agreement on this, how that's done with the city, and it runs with the land title. If you go to condition 5, or the next slide, the developer has some infrastructure that has to get moved around from the old right-of-way, and he's entering into the into an agreement with the city on that. Condition 6 is that servicing, lot grading, and drainage plans got to be submitted before a building permit's issued. The developer, condition 7, is responsible for implementing any recommendations from the traffic impact study that council accepts. And condition 8, that a detailed landscaping plan be submitted prior to the building and development permit. And that's going to deal a lot with that public accessible gateway entrance and buffering, and parks and recreation will be highly involved with that final plan. And it's sort of repeated here, the public condition 9, that the public right-of-way creating the pedestrian access through to the riverfront park as part of the gateway entrance be registered against the property as per plans. Condition 10, the commercial space facing the riverfront with publicly accessible entrances from the trail system be developed and maintained as per the plan submitted. And then just some other standard conditions. And if we go to the next slide, more of the standard conditions related to environment and as well the parking variance built into the to address design standards. And if we go to the next slide, just the standard conditions that this will be developed in accordance with the plans. If we go to the next slide, these are the standard conditions. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Your Worship. The next steps are, this goes to the Planning Advisory Committee for written views and recommendations on September 25th, and then a public hearing for October 7th. So thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Bill. Councillor Bourgeois, do you wish to move the recommendation?
Yes, sure, I will for discussion, but I do have questions.
Excellent. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. Back to you, Councillor Bourgeois.
Thank you very much, Madame Lama. I think I have like 7 or 8 quick questions. Bill, I'm curious, will this, the 398 square meters for outdoor patio, is this in addition to the lot that the city is asked to sell?
No, that's not being sold. That will be the city, the outdoor patio area is the city's land along the riverfront park. So it's envisioned that like other restaurants and retail vendors enter into agreements with the city to use that space. If you look at Main Street, various restaurants will come forward with proposals to create outdoor cafe space. So that's what's envisioned here. And I suspect that the riverfront plan that's being underway right now will probably get into more details of what that overall riverfront park space will look like in this regard.
Will we have access to that report before we have to make a decision on this project?
No, the riverfront plan's going to be an ongoing process for the next little while, being led by economic development. But this is part of the vision that is being presented in this proposal. So I know the administration weren't recommending that any further land be sold here. So the development is contained on its site, and that was presented to council.
Okay, for brevity, it'd be nice to get it's not clear in my mind what this, who would be leasing the city property, what for? Are we still the owners, so we would be leasing the lots to
So,
the residents, to the commercial ventures like restaurants?
so the best scenario would be, let's say there is a restaurant that rents space from the developer in the Gateway Towers. That restaurant, like any restaurant on Main Street, then will probably have to have a program like we do on Main Street for companies that want to create outdoor cafes. And so those restaurants that are leasing space would come forward with proposals. We want to create a outdoor cafe area along our frontage of the riverfront, and then we would, administration would bring those proposals forward to council for approval.
Okay, but so the city would be leasing
Yes.
this space?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we would be taking away from public space, which is reserved right now for trails, nature, basically, and converting that into commercial public space.
Yeah, and keep in mind, some of the criticisms I've heard of the riverfront from various people is there's no real amenities down there. So the way to look at this, you're going to be creating amenity space for people that may want to have lunch on the riverfront, right? And so there's a win-win here for everybody, I think.
Okay, yeah. Will the public hearings consider the, I guess, financial aspects of this? How much will the city be getting from property taxes in exchange for how much we will be giving out in grants?
No, we haven't done any of that work for this rezoning.
Okay, will that eventually come back to council or? Public, I mean,
I'm not sure it's relevant here. I mean, the overall development's a $90 million development. So we could work with finance to say, when this is fully built, this is the tax base that's going to get created. It's going to be significant. It's from a tax base perspective, if that's what you're looking for.
Yes, I mean, what are we gaining? What are we losing? But my question was, will this be considered in the public hearing? And you're saying no.
It's not typically. We don't typically consider that during rezoning.
Okay, all right. Do we need any environmental study to proceed with this?
So the Department of Environment, in your council report, we circulate it to provincial agencies. And so if any of the development site is any work being undertaken within 30 meters of a designated wetland, has to go to the Department of Environment. So, but I believe this whole site is outside of that, but their final building permit applications, site plans will have to show that. And if there are any work within that area, it would go to environment.
Okay, I'm asking these questions because I get them from residents, so they don't have access to the CRF. I raised a question earlier about this project being public land that we would be selling to a developer. And I found it strange that there would be no clause for, obviously not a donation of land for public purpose, but a grant, cash in lieu. Is this not legally possible at all? We could not, request some contribution because we're getting rid of land for public purpose rather than accumulating it?
So Councillor Bourgeois, as you recall, last week I sent a response to your question on this to all of council. And
I know, but citizens don't have access to that information.
So the Planning Act, you can require essentially land for public purposes. If you have a raw piece of land and you're subdividing and you're creating more than one new lot, several new lots, you can require cash in lieu. Now, in this instance, we're not doing that. We're assembling land to an existing lot. So it's exempt from land for public purposes, but also the cities of Moncton subdivision bylaw, any application that involves the city is also exempt from that. And this is city-owned land. So there is no requirement for land for public purpose here. But
yeah, no, I get it. I thank you. It's just weird. It's just strange that it doesn't require.
And what I did mention last time, I think when I introduced this, the developer is doing significant site improvements to the overall area. He's improving it. I might have thrown out a large figure, but as part of the development, there's a detailed landscaping plan, lots of tree buffering, sidewalks, pedestrian connection, a gateway pedestrian entrance. Those are all significant improvements that not only benefit the development, but will benefit the public. So
yes, no, I know. I'm asking questions. And the last one, October 7th, it's not for you, your consideration, probably the city clerk or the city manager's consideration. Will council chambers be open by then so that residents who do have questions during that important public hearing will be able to be present at City Hall?
Currently, at this time, the council chambers will not be ready for that public hearing.
Yeah. But they can come to the lobby like we've done for other public hearings, and they can hear their objections there.
And can they present in the lobby? Will there be a microphone and a podium? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Merci, Bill. Again, very good work. Merci, Madame la Maire.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Legier, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Just a quick question, maybe something that could be considered. In this is unique for us in the sense that we are giving up for this development, giving up some green space. So I'm just wondering, in terms of carbon offsets, I know that, for example, we put monies aside out of the monies that will be received upon closing for the sale of this property, monies aside for affordable housing and so on. But could we do the same thing for carbon offset? And for example, whatever I forget what the size of this lot is, but perhaps consider purchasing 10 times this amount and entering into an agreement with Ducks Unlimited or some other steward so that land then would be permanently preserved. And it would be a way for us to be, again, good stewards of the environment. So I believe we don't have a policy for that, but could we consider this maybe as a pilot that we could entertain when all of this comes back from the Planning Advisory Committee?
This would be something I think we would need to explore through sustainable growth and development as overall service area. I don't know if Elaine wants to comment on that, potentially as our general manager, but it may be something we can explore. I'm not sure how to respond to that question right now.
Go ahead, Elaine.
Oui, merci, Conseiller Leger. It's something we can discuss internally. As you mentioned, we don't have a current policy, so I can't really comment, as Bill said, on whether we can do it or not, but we'll take it back, we'll consider it, and we'll come back to council with some feedback on that question.
Okay, that would be great, because I think it would show leadership. We talk a lot about sustainability and the things that we want to do and so on. I think this is an opportunity that I think we might be able to find creative ways just to do it and then create a policy. So I think it would be really setting a great precedent. So leave it at that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Elaine.
Thank you. Councillor Theriault.
Bill, with regards to the riverfront park plan, so where, I'm sorry, perhaps I didn't understand what you mentioned. Where are we with the riverfront park plan?
I'm looking at Can we ask Kevin Siliker to, there he is. He can advise us. Thanks, Kevin.
Good evening, Council. The Riverfront Master Plan is underway. There's been a number of consultation sessions with external groups as well as internal groups. I just had conversation with Elaine last week, our general manager, providing her an update. We anticipate going to Council in October to provide a fulsome review and seek Council's input on the Riverfront plan. So expect that consultation session in October with Council.
Merci, Kevin. It appears that we are slowly eliminating the riverfront. Is that something that the citizens should be concerned about?
Certainly not. That is not the intention whatsoever. In this case, there was an underutilized parcel of property that we felt could be leveraged for greater benefit for the citizens of Moncton, and that's why this opportunity was explored and considered and recommended. So at this time, it is not the intention to reduce the benefits of the riverfront. In fact, the Riverfront Master Plan does consider expanding the riverfront in a more meaningful way, especially the riverfront area between the existing Gunningsville Bridge and the new Brenda Robertson crossing. That's a very underutilized area, and there are potential opportunities there that should be and need to be explored. So in fact, it may actually expand the usability of the riverfront through the master plan project.
Merci. What about the gateway? We've been talking a lot about the riverfront gateway because of this new project, but when we built Downing Street, the purpose of Downing Street was to make it into the riverfront gateway. Where are we with that project?
With the Downing Street?
Yes. Yes.
The Riverfront Master Plan does contemplate improving gateways and access to the riverfront. And so consideration of Downing Street and its viewpoints and its access are definitely within that scope. You look at the assets immediately at the foot of Downing Street, the former fire station on Assumption, the parking lot there. Of course, that's a significant events and festivals destination. So there are opportunities to improve the accessibility of Downing Street as a connection to the riverfront. So that is within scope of the master plan.
And Kevin, we could have markets, I mean, Sunday markets along Downing Street, and just for the sake of the community better understanding where we're going with all of this, it would be important to have the master plan so that we could have a vision of what the river and the gateway and everything, that we're referring to, what this is going to really look like for the citizens of our city. Because I think that at the moment, not everyone understands exactly what we're trying to do.
No, that's right. And we've begun the exercise, as I mentioned, with some consultation. Next step is to consult with council. We're also going to be launching a Let's Chat page, again, with a public survey and with description of opportunities there. So that's where really that public communications and that forward-facing messaging is going to be displayed through the Let's Chat portal. We're currently working with corporate communications on a survey and Let's Chat content. So that is soon to come.
Merci beaucoup, Kevin.
Mon plaisir. Merci.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions at this time. Again, we'll be seeking the Planning Advisory Committee written views on September 25th and a public hearing on October 7th. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Bill. And Kevin.
Our next item is statements by members of council. Is exposé des membres du conseil.
I don't see any. I think we're, oh, Councillor Bourgeois, go ahead.
Merci beaucoup. Just give me a second to get my. I have three questions. The first two are to the city manager. A year ago, I asked that council review the numerous, we're talking 125 plus, action items in our strategic plan and in several other reports, such as the police study and the social inclusion report that has come in order to determine the top priorities until the end of this present mandate, which would come to an end in June 2026. In my personal opinion, public safety is number one, but maybe the majority disagrees. My question to the city manager is, when will council determine its priorities?
Thank you, Councillor Bourgeois. It's something that we'll definitely take under advisement, and we'll bring a plan forward in our next strategic planning session with council. So probably within the next couple of weeks, we should have a plan on how to move forward to help council determine those priorities.
Okay. Merci beaucoup. I'll wait for that with bated breath. The second question, I'll probably will wait until we discuss an item in a few minutes. So I'll skip to two questions, and the second question is for Councillor Edgett, but I'm not sure if she is present.
She is not present, no.
Is Councillor Steeves present?
Yes, he is online.
Okay, Councillor Steeves, over a year ago, council unanimously adopted a motion asking our Enhancing Democracy Committee to consider a multitude of potential enhancements to our municipal democratic system. For example, redrawing the ward boundaries every census to ensure equitable representation between the wards. Another example is having 8 wards with 1 representative each rather than 4 wards with 2 representatives each. And as you know, if council is to make significant changes like these to our democratic system, council must consult our citizens. And also, some of the changes may require modifications to provincial acts or regulations. And in some cases, an entire year, a whole year is required to make such modifications in order for these modifications to be in effect by the time the elections are held, which will be in May of 2026. Council must thus make any request of the province within the next 8 months. So, according to the city clerk, the committee, the Enhancing Democracy Committee, has not met since 2023. You sit on that committee. There also appears to be no meeting planned before the end of 2024. Can you explain to council why the committee has not met in almost a year?
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Bourgeois. Well, I can't fully explain it, but you are correct. We've not met in quite a long time. And my understanding is the chair is not currently active.
Okay.
That's all I have for you at this time.
Okay, thanks. Is the mayor, did the committee inform the mayor that the chair was no longer active?
Was that directed to me or to the mayor?
Yes, to you, Councillor Steve. You're the only member.
I'm not
of the
aware.
committee.
I'm not aware if the mayor received any correspondence from the chair.
Okay, so Mayor Arnold, did you receive correspondence? Are you aware that the committee is at a standstill because the chair, replacement of the chair has not been named, or?
It was beyond just the chair. There were a number of resignations from that committee, and during my last time of rearranging members on our ABCCs, agencies, boards, and commissions, you will realize that I didn't name anyone to that committee. Perhaps our state clerk can tell us what's going on with this.
The last thing that we had, the council had asked to have brought to the Enhancing Democracy Committee, Councillor, as you know, was the motion that you had put forth They answered the questions, and now administration is going forth with the questions, with the recommendations from the committee. So we are working on it in the background.
So staff is working on it. Okay, at least there's progress. So I guess my next question is to city manager then. And I'm sorry for abusing if it's over the 4 or 5 minutes, but I keep getting non-answers. Nobody's pointed at specific questions, answers to my questions. So city manager, when do you think, or do you think that staff will present to council ideally before Christmas?
We should be, yes. We should.
Yes, we will.
Okay, perfect. So there is movement, but I'll take advantage of this opportunity to suggest to the mayor that we name other members to that committee, unless we want to strike it down and don't want an enhancing democracy committee. Thank you very much. Merci, Madame la Maire.
Is there anyone else? I don't see anyone. I think we can move on to the next item. Thank you.
The next item would have been recommendations, reports and recommendations from committees and private meetings, et rapports et recommandations des comités réunions à huis clos, and there are none today. So we're going to go into reports from administration, les rapports d'administration, and the first up is religious symbols of municipal property and next steps. I believe that our CAO is going to provide a little bit of background, and we have Chris McPherson, our consultant, online as well.
Thank you, Shelley. So the objective today was to provide an update in a public setting of the independent review of religious symbols. If we recall last December, a decision to remove both the manger and the menorah from City Hall property, then was that decision was reversed. As a result, administration had ordered an administrative review, independent review into how, I guess, the decisions had been made. The overall purpose, and I know that Chris will be going into I guess a review of, or an overview of his work, but the overall objective of what we were looking to to get done was really to have a better understanding of how we got to this decision, what lessons we learned, and also more importantly is what can we do different for in the future to ensure we reduce chances of something of the same occurring again. So as a result, as indicated, administration ordered an administrative review. We hired Chris to go over the findings. He'll present his findings in a moment. After his presentation, I'll take the opportunity to provide you a bit of the next steps of some of the things that have been occurring in the background, as well as what will be occurring in the next month or two as well. So, Chris?
Chris, we can't hear you. You're maybe muted. Do we know that Chris is on?
He was.
He was.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. Loud and clear. Thank you.
I was a little frustrated. I was trying to unmute myself, and I guess I don't have control here, so. Thank you, Your Worship, members of City Council and City staff. You have my report in detail, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm certainly going to give you a little brief presentation. And as the CEO mentioned, we're going to tag team, and he's going to respond to my my report with what his plans are moving forward. Probably more important than my review. The purpose of my review, as the CEO mentioned, was to reflect on the decision by City Council late last year regarding the placement of the religious symbols at City Hall, namely the menorah and the nativity scene, with the hope that the controversy surrounding that decision would not be repeated. I'd like to acknowledge, firstly, the openness and cooperation demonstrated by council and staff throughout my review process. Accepting responsibility for outcomes of such decisions are never easy. And I commend the collective commitment of everyone to the well-being of the community above all else, and being forthright with me. First, I can report that everyone involved felt very badly about how this played out, and there was certainly never any ill will towards any one group. and it certainly was not intentional nor expected. I did want to clarify that despite reports in the media, at no time did the city ever contemplate not displaying the menorah nativity scene. In fact, the intent was to work with the Jewish Christian communities to gift them with these items and to find a suitable place to display them. As a reviewer, hindsight is always 20/20, and it's easy for me to criticize decisions after the fact, and that's not the intent here. I believe it's not to lay blame, but to learn from the situation as we move forward. For staff who raised this issue, it was almost a no-win situation. It was almost damned if you do, damned if you don't. What I mean there is there was a risk of inflaming an already tense situation with ongoing protests in front of City Hall at that time, which certainly could have grown worse by placing the symbols in front of City Hall. And of course, the risk of not placing them did occur as we saw it play out. There was also a perfect storm brewing at the time, the conflict in the Middle East, reports of rising anti-Semitism across North America. We were in the holiday season, ongoing leadership changes at City Hall with the CAO position. In fact, I believe it was the CAO's first day on the job. And in my view, this all contributed to an already complex situation. Furthermore, there was no other examples that I could find in Canada of a similar situation that Moncton could have learned from. You were charting new territory. In my experience of 45 years in local government, I've always felt the 80-20 rule applies. And what I mean by that is 80% of the time it's a process problem and not a people problem. Only 20% of the time are there people problems. And so I try to focus on process more than people. Needless to say, there was a bit of both in this situation. So let me begin with staff and the staff interviews and what they told me. Staff acknowledged that they failed to acknowledge the potential negative repercussions or the necessity of obtaining council approval for matters with potential controversy or reputational risk, as the case was here. In my view, had this issue followed the normal agenda council process, this situation may have been avoided. Because it was rushed, senior management did not conduct sufficient due diligence with regard to engaging with the impacted groups. There were timing issues. Senior management presented council with a request to halt a long-standing tradition on short notice. This induced a sense of pressure and haste among senior management and by extension to City Council. The recommendation laid before council by senior management was not based on complaints from the public, but rather by senior management. Senior management acknowledged the communication difficulties and challenges that were facing the city when the media frenzy began. And I expect few communities of your size could have dealt with the communication challenges that were present here. For council's part, council felt pressured into making a decision without sufficient time for deliberation or consideration of alternatives. Council questioned why staff did not anticipate the pushback from the community. Council was not pleased with the communication that was coming from city staff. Council also felt the decision was rushed, some wondering why the decision needed to be made when it did. In the end, council wants the city to develop better ways to recognize diversity. It wants council wants the city to develop a policy regarding the placement of religious symbols and a structured way of engaging impacted groups. And council also wants to make sure the city learns from this experience. So my recommendation, Your Worship, is that the CAO must establish clear, standardized rules governing the interaction between staff and council. There should be regular opportunities for public engagement and consultation on significant decisions, and you do it every day. There needs to be communication strategies to ensure timely, transparent, and comprehensive dissemination of information to council staff and the public, especially when there's decisions of this nature. And council agenda processes should be reviewed and streamlined if possible to allow council to get the reports earlier prior to council meetings. Clear policies and procedures need to be developed regarding the religious symbols in public spaces. And the city needs to invest in building stronger networks with the community to enhance community resilience, collaboration, and support, especially with the goal of promoting inclusivity, diversity, and community well-being. And lastly, the city needs a strong emphasis on maintaining public trust through transparent, accountable, and inclusive decision-making. Your Worship, I'll now turn it over to the CAO, I believe plans to respond to my recommendations.
Thank you, Chris, Your Worship. So as a result of these recommendations, path forward, and if we recall, the council meeting in December, there was a motion for us to develop a clear policy by the end of the summer. I think it was by the end of August. I'm here to report to you that we don't have that policy as of now. Currently, what we have done since the work that Chris has done is we've engaged an external company to help with an environmental scan. So looking at 10 municipalities from across Canada to look at best practices, what policies and procedures they have in place. We've begun to work on developing an engagement process to ensure that we engage with all religious communities within the Moncton area, as well as a community to share with them or get a sense of how they feel the city should be advancing on such policy. Once we have that draft policy put in place, we will be engaging with the City Social Inclusion Committee to ensure that they have an opportunity to help assist in building the proper policy, with the intent then to present it to council by end of November of this year. Again, many of the recommendations that have put forward by Chris are, I guess, current practices in place, ensuring better communication, more transparent conversations, and ensuring that any future decisions of this manner are well thought out and have engaged the appropriate groups.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. So we're just receiving this. We're not making a decision on it, but it is the time if there are any questions. Councillor Bourgeois, go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Questions for you. In your investigation, did you try to find out what communications were had between the mayor and staff before council had a chance to make a decision?
Yes, Your Worship, through to Councillor Bourgeois. I did acknowledge it earlier in my report that I did have some concerns. It was raised in my interviews with staff that there was communications between management. I want to distinguish between senior management and management and the mayor. And there may have been other discussions that I'm not aware of between staff and elected officials. And I raised it because it is a concern if the CAO is unaware of those conversations, and depending on the nature of the conversation, and I don't know what was discussed. And that's why I put in my -- 1 recommendation, the CAO has to come up with some procedures on how those interactions take place. And in my time as a CAO, I never had a problem with elected officials talking to employees, or vice versa, as long as it was operational in nature. So, for example, if you want to understand a planning process, which can be very complex, and talking to the planner, or talking to Public Works about road construction in your area, when the project's going to start and finish. I never had a problem with that, and it depends on each CAO what they feel comfortable with. In terms of bigger issues like policy, like things like this, or performance of the CAO, or talking about elected officials, I would not want that occurring without my knowledge and approval or my attendance. So I do raise it as an issue. Again, I'm not saying it influenced the outcome. I felt that having heard it in the interviews, I wanted to raise it to the CAO that he should address it.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing the mayor or alleging anything against the mayor, but we know by definition that the mayor does not have any authority over staff. Any councillor does not have any authority over staff. We cannot go to a staff's office and say, I want you to do this. any decision that crosses the line between the politics and the administration has to go through both ways, from the staff to council and from council to staff through the CAO. So that was sort of my question as to, did you document the exchanges between the mayor, if there were any, and staff leading to this, to the fiasco, if we may say?
No,
So
I didn't.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
Councilor Bergeron. I didn't document what was discussed. It was raised by staff as a concern that there had been a discussion from a member of management without, and the acting CEO at the time acknowledged that he was unaware of that.
Okay, all right. My second question is also related to communications, but this time between the mayor as the spokesperson of council and the religious communities. Did you document those conversations and between the Jewish community and the mayor, and between the Christian community and the mayor?
Yes, Councilor Bourgeois, there was, I was made aware there was a meeting held by the mayor, and I believe there were staff members present as well, with members of the Jewish community to discuss not displaying the menorah. I didn't get verbatim the discussion that took place. I think the mayor would have to comment on that. But there was a discussion that took place in between the initial meeting of council and the second meeting in which they reversed their decision.
Okay. Because there were basically two reasons why council made the first decision. Some people and many people would say it was the wrong decision. I think we eventually made the right decision, but regardless of whether you agree with the first decision or not, there was definitely a miscommunication or a difference of opinion as to what was told to the religious communities, especially the Jewish community, because the reaction to the first decision by the Jewish community in particular, much less by the Christian community, but the Jewish community was completely different than what council was told before we made the decision. So you didn't document that.
I didn't, but I think I've commented before. My understanding is the reception was lukewarm at best. I think the mayor should probably, I wouldn't put words in her mouth. She probably should comment on that.
Well, I just wanted to respond a little bit around what we'll be doing to make sure that this doesn't occur again. One of the clear recommendations, or both of those recommendations, one around clear decision-making protocols, is conversations that we've had at the leadership table at the GM level with myself to ensure, again, that any type of those policy conversations that occur, that they occur through the CAO. Of course, we don't want to limit also the ability for staff to interact directly with council on operational issues such as updates on certain things. And again, as Chris indicated, that's an important piece of the communication between councillors and city. So we're trying to walk that line to ensure that, again, that the policy discussions occur at the right level. Secondly, learning from past experiences and ensuring the appropriate consultation on future decisions to ensure that, again, any confusion around either decision or direction and or position from, regardless if it's a religious group or any other group that we're talking about these hard policy questions, that we have those conversations well ahead of any decisions that are made, to be able to properly inform council to ensure that they're well aware and have confidence that we have made had that consultation to ensure everyone is understanding of the results of any decision.
Thank you. My last question is, a lot of the problems, in my opinion, I'm not sure what council says, but a lot of the problems were related to our procedural bylaw that sort of painted us into a corner. And I've already spoken in detail about what potential modifications to our procedural bylaw would be necessary to avoid future fiascos. For instance, the obligation that we must make a motion before we can discuss an issue. To me, it ties our hands, and we can't go around the table first and foremost just to ask questions on any particular issue before we could make the motion. So my question is to the CAO, in your future, not just on the manger and the menorah fiasco, but on the procedural limitations of council, is there going to be a review of those procedures and how maybe we could facilitate council deliberations? I know we need formal rules and regulations, but sometimes they bite us. And in this case, that's obviously what happened in certain circumstances. So will that be included in your report to council eventually?
We'll take that under consideration, work with our legal department, and it's something that we can definitely look into. Yes.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Maire.
Thank you. Councillor Kingston.
Thank you, Madame Mattis, and thank you, Chris, for that. It was it's great to hear again, reassuringly, that the whole story didn't get out originally, and somehow the part about gifting, donating, and not banning didn't quite make it to the media circles around the country and I guess around the world. So just reassuring that the story, the intent of council, and my respected colleagues on council, that certainly was not, and that's what the recommendation certainly points out and confirms, that we were not in any way, shape, or form looking to ban anything. It was simply a relocation, as it were, but that complete story never did get out to the masses, and therein the controversy. So just thank you for that. I'm glad you touched on that early in your presentation, and thank you for that report. Merci, Madame Mattis.
Thank you.
Merci. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Arnold. Thank you, Chris, for all the time and thought that you put into this. This is just a bit of a policy plan question to the CAO. On number 3 of Chris's recommendations, where it speaks of improved communication strategies, I'm just curious, halfway down the paragraph, it says the city must have a plan in place on how communications will be handled during a crisis. Is that currently in place? Do we have a separate policy of communication of crisis, or is that something that's going to be worked on?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Steves. That is something that's being worked on.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Crossman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Start first, and thank you for the presentation. I guess my question will be to the CAO. We have basically, as council, approved Chris to go out and do his work and come up with his findings and present a document back to council, which he has done, with 10 recommendations. So I guess at this point, there's no recommendation on today's agenda. It's just for information purpose only. I want to know, all 10 of these are very important to make sure that we show our full, that we're disclosure, that we're showing people that we're communicating within communities, we're understanding situations going on within the communities, we have clear policies, as it's stated. I'm almost in the position where I want to move a motion to accept these 10 recommendations that have been brought forward to council and put them before staff with a time frame to come back and say, all of these have been covered, so that the public has faith again and they understand the process that council had to go through, which was very traumatic, I'm going to say, in December. It was your first day. I remember it very well. The mayor and council got numerous emails, over 25,000 or 2,500 emails. There was concerns within the communities. So I am at this point, and I will put it forward, that council accepts Chris's 10 recommendations. That will be my recommendation for council to vote on, or my motion, and that these 10 recommendations have to be followed through and carried out by the end of December 2025, so that we can have a clear vision on it. And any changes, obviously, you're talking about doing 1 or 2 of these now, But Councillor Steves brought up a great point that there is no current communication plan in place during a crisis. So it is part of the 10 recommendations. I think strengthening of staff training and support is very important. I didn't hear that this evening in the conversations that were had. You know, the review agenda, Chris talked about it. Clear policies, Mr. CAO, you talked about it. You know, promote leadership and accountability. Learn from past experiences. Chris has told us that we were setting a precedent here. There was no other municipality that was doing this that he could find on record. So I will move that, and I'm not sure if I can move that. I'll look to the mayor and maybe the city clerk, that I will move these 10 recommendations be voted on and carried out by the December of 2025. I'll see if anybody seconds it. We can have discussion.
Council can always make motions.
Thank you, Your Worship.
It's moved by you. Councillor Richard, I see your hand up. Did you wish to second this motion?
Oui, s'il vous plaît.
Okay. And do you have a question?
No, I'm good, merci.
No, I'm good, thanks.
The rest are old hands at this time. So we have a motion before us that these recommendations come back and with a plan for implementation by January 2020.
December 2025.
December 2025. Excellent.
That's a year.
Okay,
Oh, December 20th.
25.
Okay, sorry.
not this December, next.
Okay.
Gotcha. All right, on the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item.
Oh,
No, mine is not an old hand.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Maire. I just had a
Thank you, Your Worship.
purposes only, although we've just adopted a resolution, but just before the recommendation, it says that administration will bring the final draft to council for discussion, review, and approval with the goal of having a new policy or guideline and process in place by January 1st, 2025. I just want clarification. So why not before December 1st, 2024, a month early, so that we know what we will do for the next holiday season? So will the status quo prevail for another year? Is that the intent?
So thank you for the question, Conseiller Bourgeois. I think the intent would be that we would maintain the current approach until such a policy has been adopted by council. There are two things here that we're talking about. We're talking about the recommendations of the report, which are much further than just the religious symbols policy. Today, my objective was to provide you an update on the religious symbols policy as well as a report, with the idea to come back to council with a full action plan on the recommendations on how we would implement. We have a motion now that we would do that by December 2025 for all the recommendations. Our intent is still to have the policy in place, I believe, by the end of December 2024, to have it, the religious symbols policy adopted by council. If we can get there earlier, depending on the ability to consult with everyone and ensure that we've given everyone a chance to have a say, we will bring it forward earlier. But that at this point in time, with talking with our staff that are involved in the engagement side, want to ensure that we have the opportunity to engage with the religious communities, with the general public, as well as ensuring that the Social Inclusion Committee has an opportunity to provide us some guidance as well.
Okay, but just je veux juste être très clair là. Donc,
So I just want to be very clear. The next holiday season, so for the next holiday season, we'll have the menorah, we'll have the nativity scene, and the Islamic symbol will be put up as we did last year. But other than that, we're hitting the pause button and we're waiting on the policy. Without a policy in place, we will keep the same decisions. So if someone comes up with a decision or independent request, it will be considered in due time and will be put to the council for a decision. Great, thank you very much. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yes, we did.
okay.
Next item.
Next item, c'est l'exploitation du.
Next item on the agenda, salvage yard operations, Tomb Street. I believe that Hélène Aucoin is here with us for the presentation.
Bon après-midi. No, I don't think this is on. Is it?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council, members of the public. We've been receiving an increasing amount of complaints regarding salvage yard operations on Tomb Street since the fall 2023. So I'd like to provide an update on actions being taken by the city, by the provincial government, and by the property owner to try to mitigate some of the concerns that have been raised. It must be noted that the subject property is currently zoned industrial park, which would not allow a salvage yard such as this one. However, since this property was operated as a salvage yard prior to changes in zoning being made, then it is entitled to non-conforming rights under the Community Planning Act to continue to operate as such. Most of the concerns received from the residents of the area are regarding noise, pollution, increased truck traffic, as well as some rail cars blocking Mill Road. So some of the actions that have been taken by the Department of Environment and Local Government are included under the approval to operate. Salvage yards like this one need an approval to operate from the DELG. The property owner does have one in this case. It's been renewed in July and is effective, valid until November 30th, 2024. The approval to operate includes various conditions, mostly dealing with environmental protection. In this case, the property owner had to develop a spill prevention and as well as a noise and vibration assessment study. Both plans have been received by the Department of Environment. It also states in the conditions of the approval that a noise and vibration assessment and abatement plan had to be implemented or has to be implemented by November 1st, 2024. Another regulating body for salvage yards is Justice and Public Safety. A salvage yard operation must obtain a salvage dealer's license from Justice and Public Safety. In this case, the property owner does currently have a valid license. In June, there were some changes made to the Salvage Dealers Licensing Act by Justice and Public Safety. Some of these changes include that now all application must include a fire safety plan and site layout for approval by the fire marshal. There's an increased penalty for violations to the licensing requirements. There's new ministerial authority to temporarily suspend a license without a hearing, and as well as new ministerial authority to apply special conditions to a salvage dealer's license. There was also a letter sent from the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, Minister Austin, to the property owner in May. The letter identified some concerns with the operation, some concerns that they had heard as well from the residents of the area. The letter also indicated that the minister was reviewing their license and considering either revoking or suspending their license. Since then, we haven't heard that a decision has been made at this point on the subject license. From a city's point of view, our bylaw department continues to receive as well as actively enforce complaints with respect to noise as well as debris. Development permit for the construction of a fence as per the fire marshal's order has been approved, and the fence construction has started. The development permit also included a noise mitigation wall, which was part as the noise abatement study that was done by the property owner. And the noise mitigation wall would basically consist of sea containers stacked one on top of each other. It would be approximately 240 feet long and 3 sea containers high and painted green. A permit the development permit has been approved for the container of this noise mitigation wall as well. There was also a letter sent from the mayor to the property, from the mayor to Justice and Public Safety, just highlighting the concerns that we've received from the residents of the nearby community. So we're advised that the Department of Environment and Local Government continue to monitor conditions that are included in the approval to operate. And the city's bylaw enforcement department also continues to enforce complaints that are received. We will as well continue our discussions with the provincial government as on this property. And thank you I can answer questions if you have any. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Elaine. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Crossman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Elaine, thanks for the presentation. Not seeing the CAO in the room right now, but I'm going to make a request that we get together with the community surrounding Tomb Street, the Louisville community, the Sunny Brae community, the Sunny Acres community, and that we have this same presentation done with them in a public space so that they can understand it, because they're not all watching this evening, and they're running into multiple concerns on Tomb Street, industrial, and everything surrounding the area. So I would like to see if we could plan some sort of, the CAO and I had this conversation last week about getting together with the residents, not only from the community groups that we're getting tons and tons of emails from, but we need to hold this in Louisville, preferably by the end of September 2024. So Elaine, I don't know, I see you at the podium and I see you shaking your head, so I look for any feedback possible from yourself or the CAO. Thank you, Your Worship.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Crossman. We can certainly look into that and try to organize a meeting with the residents of the area.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Theriault.
Yes, I totally support Councillor Crossman's request. And maybe for the public, Nick, would it be possible for you to explain to the citizens what is active enforcement matter? Because I'm not very good at explaining the legalities of this, with this issue. What does it mean? For example, today, this is an active enforcement matter, so we don't get into debates or discussions, right?
Correct. So we continue, the city continues to receive complaints from residents on noise matters, for example. So we continue to investigate those complaints. So they're active enforcement files that we have open. So therefore we can't really discuss those, just like with any other enforcement file on any other property. We don't discuss those matters publicly. So that's the situation that we're in today as well with this problem.
So for the citizens who contact us almost every day with this issue, can you explain? I mean, it's extremely frustrating for the citizen. So
there's very little that I can say publicly about this file, except to say that any complaints that we receive that are related to bylaw enforcement matters are dealt with through our bylaw enforcement team, just like we would with any other property. But we can't discuss the details publicly.
Cannot discuss the details.
Correct.
Let's see, but I'm putting myself in the shoes of the citizens. I don't think we understand exactly what that means. I know it's legal and I know that we can't, but why?
Well, any of our enforcement files could end in potential legal, court jurisdiction, right? So we can't discuss that.
These are the types of example I think the citizens want to hear. So
sure.
Just explain that a bit.
there's very little that I can say beyond that. We can't get into discussing matters that are going to be before the courts, because that could impact the enforcement process, the investigation process, and the legal outcomes. So we don't discuss those publicly.
That's perfect. I think that's all.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Bourgeois.
Merci, Madame la Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Second, I guess, example of noise pollution that we've received in the past 2 years since we adopted a new bylaw that was supposed to solve most of the problems related to noise. The previous bylaw did not seem to suit or fit the bill and resolve the issue, so we adopted a new one about 2 years ago. I wonder if we, in addition to what we're going to do about AIM and tunes and everything else, could we have, and maybe this is not the time, and after 2 years, maybe after 3 years, but a review of that bylaw to see what exactly is the problem. Why can't we minimize noise to an acceptable level? Is it because we can't enforce it because we don't have the equipment necessary to measure noise coming from mufflers on Main Street or coming from heavy equipment around residential areas? So I guess my question is to either the city chief administrative officer or our legal counsel or to the fire chief who is responsible for the implementation of this bylaw. But is it working? Because it doesn't seem to be. And if not, do we need to take a second look at the new bylaw we adopted 2 years ago, because it doesn't seem to be what the citizens want? Merci.
Yeah.
Councillor Bourgeois, I think that's probably a conversation that we can have another day, but certainly we can have that conversation with council in the near future.
Okay, perfect. As long as you bring it up to council, I'm happy. Merci.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thanks for the update, Elaine. Next item.
Okay. 10.3 is a seniors update. I believe Monica Tucker and both Nick Ravichot will be leading this item. And there is a recommendation in front of council.
Perfect. Do you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Perfect. Here today to provide an update as per July 15 council meeting. There was a motion in place. The motion read that the Moncton City Council approved funding in the amount of $49,000 for operational costs incurred by the Branch 6 Royal Canadian Legion Veteran Avenue for the provision of senior activities from February to August 2024, and that administration returns to council at the September 19 regular public meeting with other options for future programming in partnership. Before I jump into, we talk about community partnership, I wanted to provide an update on two things that were also mentioned during the July 15 council meeting that I think it was important to provide a small update. One was the lack of an inventory list of city organization offering senior programming. We've worked with some of our summer students, which helped create this list, and also a communication strategy tailored to seniors. We know that that's an important part that we haven't been so great at. So if you could go to the next slide. Here you'll see the inventory list that is, I want to stress, not completed. This has been a work in progress, but wanted to kind of share where we're at. It gives you an idea. We've identified 35 groups in the city that do provide senior programming program. And then out of those 35 groups, there's about 25 groups that we actually are already supporting either in kind, we offer free space to some of these groups, or by grant. Next slide, please. For community partners, we've had discussion with 5 community groups in the last, I'm going to say 6 weeks. 2 proposals we're bringing forward today, the Branch 6 Rural Canadian Legion and Dans Son Corps. The YMCA, Reservoir Place, and Moncton Library all expressed interest in collaborating with the Recreation Department to expand their senior programming. A lot of these groups are already providing senior program, but they're willing to work with us in providing even more. Here we have the Branch 6 Rural Canadian Legion proposal. You'll see there's 4 days. I think they had come to council on July 15 and kind of showed this proposal too, but wanted to show again that they're offering 23.5 hours of programming. This includes fitness class and social program. They also mentioned that there's also 4 hours of class that they could add if anyone else was interested in providing senior programming at their location. This is about a $7,000 a month cost, just to give you an idea of what they're looking for. And then next slide, please. This is the proposal from Dans son Corps. This is a pilot project that they would like to do. It would be for 12 weeks. They would run from October 1st to December 20th. You'll see here 4-day programming as well, 19 hours of programming, a lot more social programming than the fitness classes, 3 hours of fitness classes and about 16 hours of social space that they could use. I would like to highlight that this programming would be free for all seniors to participate in any of these. Next slide, please. You'll see that we are recommending, staff is recommending three things in the CRF. Approve funding in the amount of $28,000 for the Branch 6 Royal Canadian Legion Veteran Avenue for their senior programming for the period of September to December 2024. Also approve funding in the amount of $20,355 for the Dans son Corps pilot project for senior programming. And last, also direct administration to commence the hiring process for the new community development officer, seniors and youth position in 2024 fiscal year. This was also something that was brought up by council on July 15. The fear of the gap that we could still have in the 2025 year. So if we were to start this year with the hiring process, that would help with the filling the gaps, I guess, for 2025.
Questions? Thank you, Monica. Councillor Thériault, do you wish to move this recommendation? Thank you. Is there a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. Questions? I see Councillor Legier. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you. I just want to say, Monica, thanks a lot for the effort related to the Legion and also Dans son Corps. And just curious in terms of how the conversations will go now with Resurgo and the YMCA and so on, and how you intend perhaps to incorporate some more activities.
The hopes would be for 2024 to implement things that we can do quite fast, quite quickly. But also if we do have someone, our community development officer in place in 2024, that they can start building that relationship as well, right? Because part of it will be to build the relationship with these groups. A lot of these groups do a lot of great things already that we could even just start promoting heavily, that not everyone might not know about what they're offering. Like even Resurgo Place, they offer 50% on Wednesdays, right? It's already in place. And they also have this program where they go in seniors' home and they have a presentation. So instead of them coming to the location, they actually go on location in seniors' home, which I personally did not know about. And I think a lot of people probably don't know about this program that it's already offered. So I think with a little help on our side, on the recreation side, we'd be able to implement and provide a little bit more for that.
So can, I guess, moving forward, communication be more involved, making sure that, I know that one comment prior was that unless we funded it, we didn't put it on our website. I think perhaps we should look at that again. You could always have a disclaimer indicating whether or not we're involved, but I think highlighting all the activities in one place, and that's been really the criticism of seniors, trying to figure out where things are being held, would be beneficial. So I think it would be, this is a good start, and taking and connecting those different organizations and helping through the promotion on the City of Moncton website. So again, thanks a lot. I'm really pleased. It's been very helpful for many seniors out there, and I think Dans Encore will probably fill a nice void as well, which is the social aspect and also the ability to deliver services dans Encore, probablement français, beaucoup plus que, par exemple, la Legion, mais ça ne veut pas dire nécessairement.
Dans Encore will be able to offer more services in French, much more so than the Legion probably, which doesn't mean that they're exclusive, but I think that will be very helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Bourgeois, then Councillor Richard. Go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Maire. Juste une petite question. Merci pour la présentation.
Just a quick question, and thank you for your presentation and all the efforts that you've made. But do we have any idea what's going to be happening with the Lion Center on St. George? Eventually? To see if we're going to rehabilitate it as a senior center, or will it continue to be leased to the province? Because that's going to be another big part of the puzzle.
So we're still under lease with the province of New Brunswick for that. I have not been involved in any conversations with the province about their kind of long-term vision, if they have one for that facility, but we can follow up with them.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Nick. Merci, Madame la Maire.
Thank you. Councillor Richard.
Merci, Madame la Maire. Merci, Monica. Sorry qu'on n'est pas là. Puis, sorry, les étudiants.
And these students that helped you aren't here, but thank you to all of you and to them for have done this work.
In the Royal Canadian Legion part of it, we're specifying from September to December 24, and not in the Dans Encore pilot. From your presentation, I think I heard you say that though. So.
Yes, that's correct. It would be from October 1st to December 20th, so until almost the end of 2024.
Okay, I just wanted to make that point. I don't know if that can be added into the recommendation or however you want to do it. And then also in the CRF under financials, the financial contents are included in the contents of the CRF. That's how it was written. So I'm just wondering where we were getting these funds.
Oh, we're getting the funds. So, good question, Councillor Richard. The funds are earmarked for the seniors program, would be coming from the funds that had been put aside for the Lions group. I think that's correct, isn't it, Nick? So the funds are already budgeted and were not being used by the Lions group. So we're redirecting those funds to the seniors, to the Legion, and to the Dans Encore, as well as the unbudgeted cost of hiring that staff in 2024.
Merci, Serge. I see Jacques came on. I don't know if you had anything else on that, or?
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor Richard, no, that would be the case. That is for 2024, though. There would be some considerations that would need to be discussed during the 2025 budget deliberations.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Just we usually see those kind of information in the CRF, so that's why I was questioning. So, merci, Monica. Merci, Madame la Maire.
Terrific. I don't see any other questions on the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
The next recommendation is a request for proposal RFP 24009 Professional Engineering Future Trail Ryan Street to Mapleton Park. The motion before council this evening is that Moncton City Council approve the award of design component of request for proposal RFP 24009 Professional Engineering Services Future Trail Ryan Street to Mapleton Park to the highest scoring proponent, meeting all terms and conditions and specification being CBCL Limited in the amount of $187,756.50, including HST at 15%, that the remaining portion of the work required under the scope of request for proposal RFP 24009 be awarded to CBCL Limited condition upon Moncton City Council's approval of the future capital works budget and the municipal capital borrowing board's approval as required. It is also recommended that a professional engineering service agreement be drafted and the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign said agreement and affix the corporate seal of the city of Moncton thereto.
Terrific. Thank you. Is there someone who wishes to move this recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Richard. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. Any questions? Seeing none. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
The final recommendation coming out of this section is supply agreement for bulk coarse salt 2024-2025 winter season. Motion that the city of Moncton enter into an agreement with Nutrient Limited for the supply of bulk coarse highway salt for 2024-2025 season effective September 1st, 2024 through to August 31st, 2025 at a unit price of $66.40 per metric ton plus HST 15% in accordance with the province of New Brunswick standing offer agreement P03400180.
Thank you. Councillor Legier, do you wish to move this? Thank you. Is there a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Steeves. Any questions on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next, our reading of bylaws, électeurs arrêtés municipaux. The first two are first readings, and council provided me permission to give these two readings. First is a bylaw amendment of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw being bylaw Z222.38. This is for 1113 Lefurgy. It's a first reading, subject to item 7.1, arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté de zonage de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z222.38, 1113 Avenue Lefurgy. C'est la première lecture. The second one is a bylaw amendment of the City of Moncton zoning bylaw being bylaw Z222.39, 61 Donald, first reading. Arrêté portant modification de l'arrêté de zonage de la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté Z222.39, 61 Avenue Donald. C'est la première lecture. 10.3 is for waste collection to be the second and third reading. I will require second reading permission.
Thank you. Is there somebody who wishes to move second reading on waste? Thank you, Councillor Crossman. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw relating to waste collection being bylaw P24. It's a second reading. Arrêté règlement de la collection et l'élimination des déchets dans la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté P424. C'est la deuxième lecture.
Thank you.
Third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Crossman, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc again. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
A bylaw relating to waste collection in the city of Moncton being bylaws of P424. It's a third reading. Arrêté règlement la collecte et l'élimination des déchets dans la ville de Moncton sur l'arrêté P424. C'est la troisième lecture.
Thank you. I believe that concludes today's agenda. Councillor Richard, would you like to do us the honors?
I move to adjourn, please.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everyone.